Sorry. Now are we online? All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the July 24th Park Authority Board meeting. We do not have a quorum in room at the moment, so Cynthia, I cannot read you in. But the first two committee meetings are information only, so we can get started with them. And Ken, I'll turn the floor to you.
Okay, I'll call the Planning Development Committee to order and turn it over to Ms. Hannafin. Or whoever.
Yes, it's gonna be.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, okay. Hi, my name is Mohammed Giwain. I'm the Assistant Division Director with the Planning and Design Developments. And I'm here to present the discussion item for the Planning and Development Division Annual Work Plan for fiscal year 2025. The fiscal year 2025 work plan is based on the fiscal year 2022 to fiscal year 2026 capital improvement program that was approved by the Park Board in 2021. It includes current active projects that extend into fiscal year 25 and beyond, as well as new projects expected to start in fiscal year 25. As you can notice on the packet, we now have a new work plan format where we try to streamline information provided, focusing on the most relevant information, such as the scope and status of the projects, as well as which phase the projects are currently at, and the overall financial information like initial budget, expenditures, and balance to date. Board members can also access the Excel sheet version, where you can sort the data by district, phase of the project, project status, and so on and so forth. So basically, you can sort based on any of the column headers that you see on the attached Excel sheet. Project highlighted in yellow, mostly ESCO phase 4 projects, will start in fiscal year 2025, although the scope phase was initiated over the past year. In terms of cash flow, we spent the forecasted $25 million of bond funding last fiscal year, out of which we encumbered $4.5 million to be paid during this fiscal year. So with the $4.5 million encumbered, the projected fiscal year 2025 cash flow is to be around $30.5 million, as detailed in this slide. The table below shows some of the active bond projects that are currently under construction and to be completed this fiscal year. For a more detailed list of projects, please refer to the work plan attached in the packet. The packet also includes the work plan for projects under planning, and this slide shows a snip of some of those projects for your information. So once the Park Authority Board provides feedback through August 2024, staff will return to the board in September 2024 with a recommended fiscal year 25 work plan for approval. And with this, I conclude my presentation and open it up for questions and discussion.
Any questions? Oh, yes.
I just have a question. You mentioned on the previous slide, something about trail strategy. Their update to the trail development strategy plan. Will there be any kind of presentation on that, or can I get some information about that?
So we typically bring the strategy to the board annually.
Okay.
As part of that
Okay.
process.
Yeah.
Annually, or we bring it at the start of the bond cycle to determine how we're going to use the trails funding.
It's just,
bond.
I'm
Yeah.
getting some
Yeah.
constituent questions about it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Other questions?
And that's just a lot of the, just to be separate, when they're talking about the hard surface trail, correct? This is, what's it,
They're talking about hard surface trails.
right? That's the trail development strategy plan, right? It's the
It's everything.
National Surface
All
Trails. too?
trails.
Okay.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I guess I would ask a similar question now that I'm looking at this again, the timeline for the needs assessment. It says, if I can read that far, prepare a new CPA needs assessment, what's kind of the timeline for that?
We're coming.
We wrapped up the scope. We're gonna meet with the director's office to go over that one more time, and we should have it executed. We're coming to you in September to go over that, and we'll execute the contract after that.
Got it, okay. So soon is the answer to that question.
Other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Planning and Program Committee is adjourned.
All right,
know what you're looking for. There's more nightlife at.
we're back live again.
Like more.
All
family.
right, we have returned and Maggie, we have the Resource Management Committee.
Right, maybe I'll.
You mean to say mature people, not older.
Oh, I can read in,
Can we
let
read
me
it
do
to
that.
everybody?
Yep, yes, I can. Let's do
Okay.
that first. All right, Virginia law authorizes the remote participation of board members provided that a policy exists to ensure that such remote participation is consistently administered. This board has approved policy 111. Any such remote attendance must be approved by the board as long as a physical quorum of the board is actually present, which we now have. Voice of the remote participant is able to be heard by everyone in the room, and the remote participation comports with the policy. So the first step of that is verification that the remote participant's voice is clear, audible, and at appropriate volume for the meeting room, and also the confirmation of their location. Ultimately, we anticipate 3 members joining us remotely this evening. We've got 1 online right now. Dr. Carter, are you connected to this meeting remotely?
Yes, I am.
Raise your hand.
All right, and can you state your name and where you're calling from?
Can you hear? Yes, I'm Cynthia Jacobs Carter, and I'm calling from Franconia District, where I reside.
Thank you very much. I move that Dr. Carter's voice may be adequately heard in this location.
Got hold, I second it.
Any opposed or all in favor? Any opposed? That motion carries. Then step 2 is verification that remote participants' physical absence comports with the policy. Pursuant to the Park Authority's Policy 111 for remote participation in public meetings, I move that Dr. Carter be permitted to participate remotely in this meeting because it comports with the policy we adopted and a physical quorum is present here at the Park Authority Boardroom, 9th floor, Heritage Building. Do I-
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. And then when the other 2, Mike Thompson and Faisal Khan join us later this evening, we'll read them in as well. But now, Maggie, we got time for the committee?
Right. So let's call the Resource Management Committee to order. And we're gonna hear about the deer. Yeah. Oh, he's online. Okay, great, great.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Dave Lawler, ecologist with the Natural Resources Branch. I've been working with Katie for several years now, and she had asked if we could add Wood Glen Lake Park to the sharpshooting program this year. She's had a few requests from citizens, including the IMA leader at Wood Glen, who has been involved in some restoration plantings there and noticed a lot of deer, especially this past year. And she wanted to see if we could make a late addition to the sharpshooting program. We already are sharpshooting right across Zion Drive at Country Club View Park. And this would complement that really well by having the whole stream valley that's under Park Authority property under the program this year.
Any questions? So basically, we're adding, you already approved the original sharpshooting.
Yeah.
We wanted to add another one and
Good enough? Any questions?
No questions. I'll just say this is in the Braddock District. The supervisor's office is fine with it. I'm fine with it. So no
Good.
reason not to move forward.
All right. Well, then in that case, Resource Management Committee is adjourned. Thank you so much, David.
Consensus to move it forward.
Thank you all very much. Have a nice evening.
Oh,
Good information.
That's just information. All right.
I had a
Resource,
question. I guess you couldn't see me.
Cynthia, please go ahead.
I was wondering if the outcome of the sharpshooting is for consuming the deer or for sports only? Or thinning out or whatever you're,
The
That's my question.
sharpshooting program is
for food or
primarily,
not?
no, the meat is donated to Hunters for the Hungry or other charities. But the primary goal of the sharpshooting program is to reduce deer herds, deer populations or deer densities, and allow the ecological understory to recover. The deer are overbrowsing all of the recruitment from the tree species. A lot of our forests are bare on the ground. There's no young oak trees, there's no young maples or tulip poplars or anything like that. So that's the primary goal. It's not for food. It's basically ecological restoration on a different level.
There's also a public safety aspect of it, reducing deer vehicle collisions.
Yeah, that as well, correct.
Food is used.
Yes, all the food is used. That's my understanding.
It is all donated, yes,
Thank you.
ma'am.
And
That's
Dave-
great. I have some in my backyard. I've got some behind me.
Believe it.
And Dave, can you just,
Kingstown Park is right behind me. It's full of deer.
Dave, could you just confirm for the record that it's the police department conducting these shootings?
Yes, sir, it is. It's 100% trained sharpshooters with the Fairfax County Police Department
Thank you.
that do all the shooting from an elevated position. We usually pick in these two parks, we will pick one stand only in each park. It'll be from an elevated position and it is baited to try to knock the herds down faster to increase efficiencies.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Yeah, Dave, pardon me, I thought we weren't allowed to bait anymore because of chronic waste disease. Am I incorrect that?
Overall, that is correct. We are given a depopulation permit from DWR, and so we are allowed to bait for the purposes of sharpshooting only. We used to do camera surveys to estimate deer densities, and we used corn for those, and we are no longer allowed to do those. Those are not an adequate use of baiting. Since we are reducing deer herd densities, that they are allowing us under the permit to continue to bait because the primary goal is reduction of densities, which will.
And
Just to
Dave, we can't
clarification,
bait for
thank you.
archery.
We cannot bait for archery, no ma'am. Sharpshooting is the only activity we can bait for. And it is basically just because it's reducing the deer densities, which is going to reduce the level of chronic wasting disease spreading through the population.
Thank you. Appreciate the clarification.
Anytime. Any more questions?
Are any more questions? All right, I think we are now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Have a nice evening.
You
Thanks,
too.
Dave. All right, Ken?
Call the budget committee to order. And who am I turning this?
Mike's
over?
online too.
Oh, Mike's online. Okay, Mike. It's all
Great. Thank
yours.
you. Thank you very much, Mr. Quincy. And I would like to thank the committee and the board for allowing me to present remotely today. This is our opportunity today to go over our year-end results. And we have a couple of action items related to the how we ended the year with the Revenue and Operating Fund and also the Park Improvement Fund. Next slide, please. So our first action item, we have finalized the year-end details with the Revenue and Operating Fund. So what we'll be discussing today is how we ended the year, our recommendations for how we handle the bit of carryover, and a budget revision related to FY25 to allow us to spend down our encumbrances and also to set us at a different baseline based on how we ended this year. We also have some information that the board had requested, some analysis that we performed to really compare us against previous years as well. So next slide, please. This chart, which you've seen before, depicts the revenue and expense activities by general area. Our transfers are always recorded in the admin section there, where you can see there's a lot of activity that really supports the entire revenue and operating fund. We're pleased to show that our net revenue actually increased from how we ended the year into the first audit period. The first audit period actually released some accruals. We had a little bit higher accrual for payroll than what we eventually used. So you can see we went from that much smaller amount to $385,000 in the net revenue. Still banner year from a revenue standpoint, and we absolutely need to celebrate that and see how fantastic golf did. For instance, you can see with $17,800,000 in fiscal year 24 revenue, the biggest year ever. And you can see that we also had positive net revenue in the rec centers, rec activities, RMD, really across the board in our major program areas. Next slide, please. So we are comparing here, as we do each time we talk about the revenue and operating fund, the different quarters. And you can see we put some numbers on there as requested by the board at our last discussion, showing what our revenue was in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and then of course fourth quarter, which you can see that that revenue is creeping back up to in the fourth quarter to FY19 or pre-COVID levels. Next slide, please. And this just shows not just on a quarterly basis, but what we have as far as the revenue basis is concerned. So here you can see that our revenue has increased. We were relatively flat in 17, 18, and 19. We know why we went down, of course, in 20 and 21 related to COVID. And then we have certainly climbed our way out of that to FY 2024, where we see that we ended the year more than 10% higher from the previous year. And the issue, of course, that we're facing is our revenue increases. As I said, it was more than 10%. It was actually just almost right at 11%. However, our expenses increased 13% from FY23 to FY24. And we'll show you a little bit of detail about that as well. Next slide, please.
Mike, before you go to the next slide.
Yeah, you can go back then, please.
Between 19 and 24, that's like a 20% increases. How much of that is driven by golf versus other things?
That we'd have to come back and tell you specifically. This is the biggest year that golf has had. And I don't have an exact answer on that. Sarah, I don't know if you have anything maybe at your fingertips.
Growth in golf from 19, I think around 19, we were grossing about 13 million and now it's about 18. So
that's only 5 of the $12 million difference. So there's other things happening too.
and that 13 is just off the top.
Yeah. But if even if that's ballpark.
Yeah.
But this is including all revenue, so it's expenditures too. So some of that is if we you take.
Yeah, all I want to get a sense of how much is golf pushing it up. Because if, as we always say, we're always worried about golf falling back off.
Yeah, as Sarah said, Kyle, that's about $5 million, and we can get that specific number for you, of course. We have seen increases across the board, and also remember in especially 24 and 23, we do not have revenue from programs at Mount Vernon Rec Center. So there'll be some sort of organic adjustments as we go forward as well. But we can piece that apart and certainly talk about program growth and golf growth and give the board a good sense of how that has adjusted over the last several years.
That might be nice. Then I just get a sense of how worried I should be about golf.
I think that my point about spending is we have to separate out, that's what we separate out spending. So a lot of that isn't growth, it's
Well,
more
it's still,
expensive.
sure, it's not net, but it's still gross revenue growth. And if it doesn't sound like it is, my concern was that golf was, I don't know, 50% or more of it, but it sounds like it's fairly spread out.
Yeah, the pre-pandemic golf was barely ever reached over 10, 11 million gross revenue. We're now at
Now we're-
almost 18,
Yeah.
And that looks-
increasing ever since the pandemic hit.
We're planning on bringing a golf presentation back in the fall where you can say, I mean, it's not slowing down.
No,
Rounds
rounds
are not
were, we
slowing
had more
down.
closures due to inclement weather fiscal year 24 than 23, and we still
Still
had,
made more money.
Still made.
and rounds increased as well with those additional closures.
And you guys, somebody, I think I asked at some point, how much does it cost? This is totally random. How much, like for a wet day, like when we have to close? Somebody
Yeah, a
just quoted
typical
me a-
weekday can range from a $30,000 day, a weekend upwards. Nowadays, the trend is $100,000 on
Yeah.
a Saturday or Sunday for
So in the rain.
across
when
all
it's
7
wet,
sites.
Like it's
Sure.
significant, yeah.
Nope, thank you.
Yeah, we'll come back with some more information and analysis for you on that, Kyle, at a future meeting.
Camps are growing as well
Okay.
tremendously. So that's another area. You know, the area that we want to see more growth in is rec centers.
Okay.
And you'll see that. I mean, what numbers, membership numbers, pass holder numbers are going up, but revenue is not staying in line. So you'll see that as part of the.
Okay.
picture.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
by this time next year.
Yes.
Yes.
Next slide, please, Allison. So just to follow on with the conversation there to talk a little bit about expenditures, this first just shows you the quarter by quarter analysis. And yes, you can see that in all of these different categories that FY24 cost us more than all the quarters of the previous years. So we dug quite a bit into that to see really what was driving that. And the first piece that we looked into is on the next slide. So, we love to try to compare all these different things on these slides. And what this shows us is with the blue line, that blue line are the number of hours worked in the revenue fund. So you can see that in FY17, we were at 1,347,563 hours. And then the cost of that labor was $30,141,457. And you can see how that sort of chugged along here. We see, of course, that it went down in FY20 and FY21 with the corrections that we made with keeping the rec center staff paid, but we weren't necessarily at the same operating hours. But you can see where we are in FY24. We ended the year at 1,169,000 hours for a total cost of $36.4 million. So our hours worked are still well below our pre-COVID average number of hours, about 13% below. And we did see an increase, of course, in hours from 23 to 24, as you can see, but the cost of that increased 14% just in that year over year alone. And that goes into the conversations that we've been having related to MRA and other compensation increases that are baked in for us as part of the county budget process. Next slide, please. Now you can also see here that our operating expenses have gone up. So rather than looking at it quarterly, we're looking at it year over year. And you can see then from 23 to 24, we went from 17.8 million up to 20.1, almost $20.2 million. And the biggest drivers in that are, of course, equipment and supplies. That's about almost $550,000. $437,000 in other operating expenses that are primarily related to goods that are bought and used for our rec center operations and our revenue fund operations. But the biggest piece of that is an increase in $1.1 million in our contract program expenses. As you know, a good number of our summer camps and even our classes are run by contract. And just like we've seen personnel expenses, these contracts are almost entirely personnel based. So those have gone up as well. And that's sort of the background there that, yes, as we continue to see what's going to, as we're looking forward to see what we think is going to happen this year, and then next year and the year after. Those are the kinds of things that have brought us to what you'll see in the fall with our new fee process and that option that we can be able to adjust certain fees if those board mandated items go over what our baseline increases are telling us. Next slide, please.
Mike, just a question on that last.
Yeah.
slide. You had said the 1.1 million of that or something like that
Yeah.
is contracts. Is that like inflation escalators baked in?
Those are not always inflation escalators. It's not really a CPI-based contract. We have contracts that are generally open in terms of competition for contractors to come and perform these services. As we go through this, most of those, when they come up, they are renegotiated with a new rate. I don't believe that we have contract increases baked in with brand new contracts, but the costs go up, and that we've been using many of these same providers, so we try to be as revenue conscious as we can with these, but there's a limit in terms of what we control and still being able to provide those services.
Sure.
The other thing with that is that a lot of the reason why it's going up is because we're also expanding the number of camps and classes that we're offering through.
Okay, and that was
contractors.
gonna
So
be my
as the revenue
follow-up.
is going up, so is our payout to those contractors.
That was gonna be
Yeah.
my follow-up is how much of this is are we buying more stuff?
No, it's really about expansion of services.
While we're on the expenditure side of it, I was watching a financial news network today and one of the commentators made a great observation. While we're all aware of it, the fact that inflation it may be slowing doesn't mean that we're going into deflation. We're working from a new higher cost basis. And so we're not likely to see our significant costs decreasing anytime in the future, although the rate of increase
Might slow, which would be
if
nice.
Fortunate may slow. But
Right.
And we're
and,
talking,
and our public, as well as the people across the street, just need to be aware of that as well.
Good point.
Absolutely. Thank you. Next slide, please. This then just shows the net revenue, one of those slides that we show year over year, and I've added numbers to it so you can see how it all comes together over the course of the fiscal year, which then brings us to the final slide, or the next slide. This shows, we've already talked about it from the activities standpoint. This shows how we did from the final PAB approved budget. Remember, we came back to the PAB for budget approval at the end of April, and you can see that that was for $60,800,000 with expenditures of $59.4 million. Where we ended up with our actuals and our encumbrances, we were very, very close to that final $60.8 million. You can see that our expenses were a little bit higher than what we had anticipated. That includes some things that were encumbered, about $500,000, $512,505 to be exact, that will be paid this fiscal year simply because the bills had not been received yet. So what we are then looking at, you can see how we ended the year, which is a little bit better than we talked about at the last meeting. You can see our current adopted budget in FY 2025, which is based on the best information that we had and we worked through with the Park Authority Board back in October. We're requesting two things here as we look at this. We're requesting to both approve the FY 2024 year-end actuals and encumbrances, the carryover of that $512,505, and we're also looking to increase our baseline budget this year based on how we ended last year. So increasing our revenue to that $60.8 million and our expenditures to just a shade under $60 million for this next year as well. We will have an opportunity to come back to the board with this, and also just keeping in mind that this does not include any new fee adjustments. We're still working through the impact of the fee adjustments from last year. And what we're be going through when we get to this fall, we'll be looking at our fee adjustments that'll be proposed by staff that will be part of the budget process. So if we can go to the final page just for this item, and then we'll get into the Park Improvement Fund here in a second. You've seen this chart before. This shows what our goal is and where we are at this point in time for our revenue stabilization reserve, our deferred revenue for summer programs, and our revenue sinking fund. We are proposing as staff that full amount of $385,696 be invested in our revenue sinking fund so we can continue to focus on projects in our rec centers. We have had the great opportunity over the last couple of years to have ARPA funds and additional funds available from the county. That is not happening as much anymore, so we are focusing on how we can best prioritize, and certainly an additional $385,000 will help us towards our annual goal that we have right now for the revenue sinking fund. Next slide, please. So what we are requesting of the committee tonight are two actions: approval of that carryover and budget review for the revenue and operating fund, and also then approval of the FY25 revised budget for the revenue and operating fund.
Any questions? Is there a consensus to move, I think we need to do this separately, don't we?
Yes.
Is there a consensus to move item 1 forward?
Yes.
Okay. The consensus to move item 2 forward.
Yes.
Okay, Mike?
Thank you. Then I promise this next one, Mr. Quincy, will be quick. This is action item 2. These are the same actions for our Park Improvement Fund. You have more detail on this in your board items, but we do certainly want to have the opportunity to go over this briefly. So if you could please go to the next item, next slide, Allison. So here you can see that our budget annually for the Park Improvement Fund, again, these are funds that roll over. So we have to have a budget approved that would essentially spend the entire fund, and that allows us to keep rolling it as we move forward here. So the budget that was approved for this year, this past year, the FY24 budget was $36.3 million with disbursements of $34,829,553, leaving the ending balance, which is the required balance for the Lawrence Trust Reserve. On our actuals, you can see that we ended up with $42,898,468, including the transfer from last year's Park Authority Board action in moving our net revenues. We had total disbursements of $5.6 million, which leaves us with $37.274 million. And what we would be asking is for that to be approved, and then that becomes our starting balance for FY 2025. The next slide is a quick overview of the items that total up to that $6.5 million in revenue in the Park Improvement Fund. You can see our telecom revenue, our donations, some miscellaneous revenue that came in for general park improvements, grants. You can see the different things that have come through here, which go to their different respective required locations in the Park Improvement Fund. And again, there's a little bit more information about that in your Park Authority Board packages today. Next slide, please. So I promised Mr. Quincy that this would be quick. So these are the two items that we're bringing forward: approval of that carryover in the budget review for the Park Improvement Fund, and then approval of the FY25 revised budget for the Park Improvement Fund, unless there are any questions or any discussion on these items.
Questions?
Yeah, Mike, can you go back to slide 14?
Sure.
I'm asking. I feel like I should know this. Maybe this memory holding it completely. Where does the park improvement fund come from?
The Park Improvement Fund comes from, this is under the control of the Park Authority Board. So we have here our contributions, we have our telecom funds come into the Park Improvement
Right,
Fund,
so
we
it's
have
everything on slide
proffers.
15,
Right.
but
Yeah.
that's 6.5 million that came in this year.
That's correct. That's correct.
But you had a total, a beginning balance of 34 million.
Mhm.
Where,
So there's existing proffers that are in this fund.
Okay.
That haven't been spent in other
and
easement.
other things?
Yes.
That's okay. That answers my question. It's like, where, where did 34 million come from, basically? Okay.
Yeah, the 5.6 million is about what we spend on an annual basis. A lot of that would be driven by, again, the revenue sinking fund is also in here. So how much of that would we be spending annually? And as Sarah just said, proffer amounts, and there are some other big ticket items that come here that are under the fiduciary responsibility of the Park Authority Board.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Sure, sure.
Any other questions? Is there a consensus to move item 1 forward?
Yes.
Okay, is there a consensus to move item 2 forward?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Great. Thank you all very much. And again, I appreciate your flexibility for letting me call in tonight.
Okay. There's nothing else. The budget committee is adjourned.
All right, and then we'll be in recess till about 7:30 or so.
Oh, that would be a problem.
I'll give Mike a minute or two to respond. If I don't hear from him, I'll give Mike a minute, and if I don't hear from him, we'll just read Faisal and.
Yeah.
The intern.
I'm concerned about the whole bacteria situation. I don't know how they're gonna have a conversation with that there.
Right.
I'm not that much of a people person.
Should I wait till?
And that's the thing, like I can't do crowds. I'm not a crowd person. All these kids come.
Oh my God. I'm back. Did you get your magnets? No? Oh, you gotta check your. I put them. He's literally been gone for about 15 months.
Oh, was it?
I'll be back.
Are you gonna do anything?
Yes, but how long have you been gone? You went to where'd you go?
Like northern France, Strasbourg, and Switzerland, Germany, and Paris.
You had a whole like study abroad.
That sounds like a fun time. How come I don't get to go on a junket like that?
Is your wife,
I don't know.
has she been in a while or she just recently?
Are we online? So we're good to go? All right, everybody, we'll get moving back into the formal board agenda this evening. Before we do that, we've got another board member to read in. So Faisal, could you please state your name and where you are calling from?
This is Faisal Khan. I'm at my residence in Providence District.
Thank you, sir. I move that Faisal's voice may be adequately heard in his location.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries, and we still don't have Mike, correct? Okay. We'll go on to the second one then. Pursuant to Park Authority's policy 111 for remote participation in public meetings, I move that Faisal Khan be permitted to participate remotely in this meeting because it comports with the policy we adopted, and a physical quorum is present here at the Park Authority Boardroom, 9th floor, Heritage Building.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries, and we'll get into the meeting. Ben, do we have any public speakers this
We
evening?
have no one signed up this evening.
All right, but I do understand we have a presentation.
Okay, we'll just keep eating.
Well, Tamika's right coming in, but I'll just get it started real quick.
Oh, well.
She's-
That's better than me talking.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. I am Tamika Brown. I get to serve here at the Park Authority as the Organizational Development and Training Manager. And I moonlight with Luca, coordinating and managing our intern program. So thank you for having us. All right, so basically our internship program. First of all, I just want to say kudos to the interns that I have among us. They're 37 strong this year, and we're super proud about that showing, because when we redesigned the program last year, our hope was to get to 40 and we started off with 25. So 1 year later, to get to 37, we're super excited, and you'll see why we're excited by virtue of just some of the fabulous work that they've come in and do, and just the way that they've engaged with our mission and vision here at the Park Authority. So our program is designed to increase community engagement in parks, recreation, natural, cultural, the business operations, all the different facets of our operations here at the Park Authority, while providing an additional pathway for the organization to build our talent pipeline. Because one of the things that we recognize is that organizations that are serious about attracting and retaining the best talent are being very intentional about how we partner with, what the future of the workforce looks like. And intern is certainly one of those channels that we use to do that. And we do that through not only our paid internship program, but also the unpaid internship program. And we have just as much engagement for both programs, because the people who come through are really excited, either because they've benefited from playing in our parks, or they're excited to contribute to our mission and to get into the business of fun, as he likes to say. So in terms of what they have done, you will see that our interns, all 37 of them, came from across over 10 national universities, over 20 different majors. And of course, all of this combined to just one stellar interns team that we saw here for 2024. And you'll see some of the logos represented here. They spanned most of the divisions here we have at the Park Authority. So for Park Ops, we had Travis Thompson. He was or is a sports tourism intern, and some of the projects that he worked at and supported, were at Patriot Park North. Just, of course, ensuring that we were streamlining our documentation and standardizing just the operating procedures there at Patriot Park North. We also had in marketing and communication divisions, we had 3 interns in this area. We had Emma Conkle, we had Julia Hayden, and missing one. Just 2, right. And they did fabulous work in supporting partakes and spearheading, our internal communication, and then of course assisted with events coordination. And you know how busy we are during the summer with our entertainment series and so on and so forth. So they were able to make great contributions to our ongoing programs in the marketing and analytics branch. For the administrative division, and perhaps my favorite only because he is my intern or our intern in HR, we had Thomas Hunter. And Thomas attends New York University with a finance and math major, and he assisted the HR branch with just about anything we threw at him. Just recently, he was running the intern social downstairs, but he pretty much helped support HR operations, whether it was for bonus processes, training evaluation, developing presentations, including this one. And of course, for IT services branch, we had Caitlin, and she certainly helped with desktop inventory and configuration, which is huge, a part of our operations right now as we're trying to respond to the needs of our staff all across the different sites and locations. Park services, of course, was represented. We have 2 interns for park services. We have Marichu, I don't want to mess that up. And then we had Leah, and whether it was supporting survey and logistics, the summer concert series, vendor coordination, or in the instance of Leah, working with the research and development of FCPA's large special event application process and just coordinating that process, the Outstanding Volunteer Award. She was very instrumental in that process. For access and inclusion, we had quite a few specialist interns. We had Anu, we had Natalie, we had Molly Close, and the projects that they supported by and large were assisting children with disabilities across the varied FCPA summer campsites that we have here And then Oliver specifically was at Franconia, manager on duty, and he was very instrumental in creating and updating, manager on duty onboarding protocols and manuals to streamline that process. And for the resource management division, we had perhaps the most of our interns, about 26 of our interns featured from the RMD division, and they were employed across most of our sites, whether it was Berkeley with Jonathan or Abdullah, who was at Sully Historic Site, and then Eric, and they were involved in the Sully Archive project tours, events, office duties over at, we had Natalie serving as our natural resources intern, and some of the projects that she helped with, had to do with fencing off oak saplings, doing great work to prevent deer browse, so they have a chance to recruit and grow full-size trees. So very important work. Continuing along, we had Thu, we had Asher, and again, projects included non-native and invasive assessment prioritization surveys. Asher was also very instrumental in that work. Then we had Jackson Ward, and he works specifically at Riverbend to supervise our campus, and other employees interns at Riverbend that worked as camp counselors or taught kids in the different camps we had, and the rest of it includes Lee Fowler and Kaya. And at Huntley, we had Sagan, who basically his project was history research and education. Huntley Meadows is not to be left out. We had really great environmental education projects going on over there, whether it was designing wayside signs, writing lesson plans, writing for the newsletter. Claire was involved in that. Mary was also fundamentally involved in the environmental education, wayside signs, lots of great things you could see were happening. Greta also was a part of that environmental education piece, as well as Laura. Again, Cicely and Mary, they were also, again, RMD very well represented. And Huntley Meadows was certainly one of those big sites in terms of the number of interns we had over there. Other projects that Aurora, Erin and Jenny were involved in were water quality, projects relating to bat population analysis, purple milkweed population, things I've never actually ever heard of, but it's really cool. I'm like, wow, we do that? So this is an education for me as well, because I'm like, wow, to say that you spent a summer at the Park Authority and got to do all these things is just amazing. And then of course at Green Springs Gardens, we had Bella, and Bella was the farmers market food access intern. So attending to just that distribution process, the pantries and the community meetings, and just promoting SNAP access, which is an important component of our work. So that by and large is just a summary of just the awesome work that our interns have done and the contribution that they've made. And I'm sure that you will join me in just congratulating them and thanking them for their contribution.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Oh, preliminary. Oh, my thing wouldn't have gone, sorry, it got stuck. Not to be left out, from Green Springs, we had Rebecca, we had Astrid, again, public garden maintenance and plant identification propagation. And then we had Katie, again at Green Springs, Noah, not to be left out, Julian, and Evelyn. These are other of our interns that contributed. And then here you have.
There we go.
Yeah. All right.
Did we want to do a group?
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
Before we do that, I just want to say thank you to all of you. I'm sure the best interns came from George Mason University.
I remember last year you told us to make the logo flash.
Yeah, I think you still got work to do on the prominence of the Mason logo. But no, thank you all for your support. I do have one question. You went from, what did you say, 26 to 37. What did you do to like change up recruitment?
So what we've been doing is working to expand the opportunities at more sites within the Park Authority. So historically, we've had interns across the agency, but they've been running their own intern programs at the site level. So what we did is we expanded that agency-wide to have an agency-wide internship program that's hopefully recognized by colleges, universities, high schools, everybody. And you know, if you're coming to the Park Authority for an internship, you're getting a good experience. So we've really centralized everything so that we can market it all together, join FCPA, join the Park Authority as an intern, employee, volunteer, whatever. So I think that was a lot of it. We've also added some
Social media.
positions for those different sites as well. And pay them, yeah.
I see Mike sent, although unless you have something. Kind of follow on to that. So if you're, if you're marketing the authority at the highest level saying, come and internship with us, how do you filter down to the sites and how do people who are applying pick? Do they get to pick where they want to go or how does that?
Yeah, so we advertise them all on one internship page. So you can come to this page and you can search sort of by category. So if you're interested in social media, marketing, things like that, you would find our special events interns as well as the marketing and communications. If you're interested in natural resources management, you would find the sites listed that had opportunities in those areas. If you're more business admin, you'd find our HR and finance opportunities, but all on one centralized website so that when we go out to colleges and universities, we can talk with students, direct them back to that page, and then they have multiple opportunities in any.
To kind of personalize it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Cynthia, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, so first of all, I want to thank all of the interns and thank you all for doing such a great job at working with them. Huntley Meadows is a favorite place of mine as well, being that it's in Franconia District. So thank you all so very much for that. And I want to ask if you advertise at all at HBCUs.
Yeah, we do. We work closely with UDC and Howard University. We attend job fairs there, as well as VSU. We attended a couple career fairs there and are working closely more and more each year as we improve our diversity recruiting efforts to work directly with the faculty at the schools that are actually working as close as possible with the students versus the career centers to share these opportunities. So we have gone out to several HBCUs and we look forward to sort of expanding that and going out to more.
Thank you. As a graduate of an HBCU, I'll be happy to help you if you need any assistance in that regard. Thank you. Thanks everyone. Thanks to you all again.
Anybody else? All right, what are we doing this photo?
Right here,
Okay,
if that works.
you're the boss.
Ready to go?
Where do you want us?
All of us or just?
No, everybody's getting in here. What are we
You
doing?
want them to go in the middle? and us-
the board gets crunched by Kyle.
Okay.
The board turns behind, turns in front of us here, right? Yeah,
Maybe
it's
in
in front of us. Yep.
Yeah, have them come up there.
Come on in.
Yeah. Slide our chairs back. Put it in front of the screen.
Actually.
Student.
Over here.
Okay.
Is she a terrible professor or what?
Yes.
No.
Camera.
I don't want to block you guys from.
Okay, sounds good.
You're in. Can we see Ken? and Maggie? Can we see Ken and Maggie?
I can see Ken and Meg.
All right, good deal.
Rate the kids with a good knees meal.
Yeah.
There we go. That's everybody. 3, 2, 1. Oh, you know what? Luca, you set it to video, man.
No, you did. That was your finger.
3, 2. Excellent.
All right.
Thank you,
very
guys.
good. Thank you.
Tenth of a second, then it's.
Okay.
All right, let me find my thing yet again.
Back along the side.
Okay.
We on, so we're good. All right, Michael, it's your turn to be read in.
Faisal's in there too.
Well, I already got him.
Oh, we did? I'm
Yes.
sorry.
So
We got Faisal.
we got Dr. Carter, we got Faisal, and now it's Mike's
Yeah.
turn.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Mike, could you please state your name and where you are calling from?
Mike Thompson in Denver, Colorado.
Great. I move that Mike Thompson's voice may be adequately heard in the location from which he's calling.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
Sorry, there it is.
Okay. The second motion pursuant to the Park Authority's Policy 111 for remote participation in public meetings. I move that Mr. Thompson be permitted to participate remotely in this meeting because it comports with the policy we adopted and a physical quorum is present here at the Park Authority Boardroom, 9th floor, Harity Building.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Mike, you are now officially part of the meeting. All right, going into administrative items. Administrative item number 1 is the recommended adoption of the minutes of the July 10, 2024 Park Authority meeting. Do I have a motion?
I move we adopt the minutes from the July 10 meeting.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Countywide action item number 1 is the recommended approval of the FY 2024 carryover and budget review of the FY 2025 revised budget for the Park Revenue Operating Fund, which is 80000. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Countywide action item number 2 is a recommended approval of the FY 2024 carryover and budget review of the fiscal year 2025 revised budget for the Park Improvement Fund 80300. Do I have a motion?
Moved.
In a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that item? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. We got 2 information items this evening. Information 1 is the 2024 legislative program as presented to and reviewed by the Administration and Board Management Committee. And information item number 2 is the development of the fiscal year 2026 proposed budget as presented to and reviewed by the Budget Committee. Chairman's matters, got a number of things this evening. First, just to remind everyone and to catch anyone up who was not here 2 weeks ago, during the June 11 Board of Supervisors meeting, Chairman McKay announced that the county executive is requesting of all county agencies a 10% reduction list from, and that includes us, obviously. So in response, we've scheduled an additional meeting. That's why Allison sent that out last week and a half ago, for August 28th at 6:30. That is the only item on our agenda. It's just effectively will operate as a committee meeting, right? But that will be our first look at potential reductions as it comes from staff. And then we'll come back in what meeting? The one on September 11th, right? And then those will formally come before us and we will make any changes that we think need to be made between the August 28th and the September 11th and then endorse those cuts to be sent to county budget office. Again, just to reiterate, that is the very beginning of the budget process. It's not the end. There's a long way to go before the county executive releases his budget at the beginning of next year, and even longer time between then and all the input that happens between the release of the county executive's proposed budget and when the Board of Supervisors actually adopts.
On
So
that point quickly,
Yeah.
should we start looking for scheduling slots for our supervisors?
That will
What timeframe?
you'll start to hear from either Jay or Allison, but those meetings we'll start prodding all of you to have those conversations. So yes, that's happening. Just to continue to go through that schedule a little bit, because it's the second year in a row we've been asked to do budget reductions, and because this is 10% versus 7% last year, I'm gonna extend our kind of change our input process just a skosh. For the September 11th meeting, I'm going to have I'm going to leave open the opportunity for the community to come before us at the at the end of our meeting. So after we get through our normal business, open a second kind of public hearing up for people who have anything they want to talk to us about on the reduction list. So I just say that to anyone who might be listening now or in the future on a recorded one. Recorded version of this meeting. We welcome our park advocates and friend groups to come talk to us about, our general fund proposals, both the reduction list and then also during that September 11 meeting. That's when we'll get the first look at what our proposed budget to the county will look like for fiscal year, whatever year that is, fiscal year 26. And then during the September 25th meeting, our meeting, all those comments received both during the 11th and anything that comes in from August on forward related to the budget will be shared as part of one of the items at a budget committee. Also, just for anyone listening, you can always email us, parkmail@fairfaxcounty.gov, on this or any other topic. Another item, last Thursday, we were able to recognize and thank the 2024 outstanding park volunteers prior to the start of the summer concert series that's held at the Government Center. Great turnout. I want to thank Chairman McKay and Dr. Carter for joining me. It was great to see and recognize so many volunteers. That was kind of our mini Ellie Doyle Awards. We'll get back in this full swing of things for next year at a site of our own, correct? That's still on schedule. Couple more recent items that I just want to make sure the board is at least aware of. Yesterday, Jay, along with John Burke, made a presentation to the Environmental Committee, and I don't know if Jay, this is part of your matters as well. You're going to talk
Both
about
of
it?
them. It's fine.
Okay. Are going to make, so you could talk a little more, but I'll just put it out there. Made a presentation at the request of the Environmental Committee on invasive management. And it looks like the way that discussion went with amongst the Board of Supervisors, they are looking for some kind of unified approach countywide to how we deal with invasive species of at least of the plant variety. That's what the focus was on. So we'll see what comes out. It sounds like we're going to go back to them some point, probably again this year, in a little more detail. This was a very kind of opening salvo kind of conversation. Just lay the groundwork, explain what the problem is.
Unified across the board, including private enterprise.
So looking at,
Yeah, go ahead.
Looking at, right now, we do the lion's share of non-native invasive, work because we have to conserve, the land that we steward, of having some sort of a county-wide with Brian, Kitely from, Urban Forestry there, and then us. We're not the only landowners, in the county, but some sort of hopefully it'd be some sort of an investment, made towards non-native invasives with a percentage or some sort of a breakdown for public, private, because the private aspect isn't so much going on people's property and doing non-native invasive work, but it's the educational component. It's the putting things in mailers, making people aware that there's plants that you can buy at Home Depot that are,
That's what I was
invasive
getting
and that kind of a thing. Yes, it would be that kind of a, hopefully, I mean, it's just the first. we
Yeah,
spent a
we'll see
lot of
where
time
it goes,
educating
but
Thank you.
any other questions on that? Okay. Explain the next one. I'm gonna go back in time a little bit. On June 25th of this year, Supervisor Walkinshaw and Chairman McKay presented a board matter to the Board of Supervisors to have county staff study a recreational facilities authority. That's a Public Recreational Facilities Authorities Act, allows local jurisdictions in Virginia to establish authorities dedicated to entertainment, arts, sports, and other recreational needs. Allison, I'll ask you if you could distribute that board matter to everyone on the board so you can kind of read it in full. But it was basically to ask, well, exactly that. It was asked county staff to investigate what this authority could do and how it relates to maybe some other entities that already exist in the county. So we'll see where that goes. There was a meeting just this afternoon of the Sports Tourism Task Force, and the reason I bring it up is connects these two dots. One of the primary items on their agenda was discussion of this from the kind of Sports Tourism Task Force. Jay, Bill, and myself were all there in attendance. Sarah was there too, that's right. Interesting discussion. That task force, I think, not surprisingly, is well, it's right there in the name, pro sports tourism. They view this authority as a potential way to increase that in the county. They'll make their recommendation to the Board of Supervisors that'll play some amount of role into whatever decision the board makes. it sounded like county staff will be back in touch with the board of supervisors before the end of the year with whether it's a recommendation or just more information. I wasn't clear. I don't know if you had a better sense of that or not.
I think right now they're talking about a memo or a NIP towards the end of the year, but they haven't given a deadline, Scott.
Okay. So, I mean, I think there's a long way before anything of material substance happens there, but I just wanted everybody to know that is a discussion that is going on at the kind of board of supervisors level, something they're looking at. And like I said, I'll ask Allison to distribute this board matter so people get a little bit more background on the act it's talked about in the board matter, and then some of the specific things the board of supervisors ask county staff to look at. Finally, really excited to see this on my LinkedIn feed earlier today, but I saw the PROSA plan won the Virginia Plan of the Year from the Virginia chapter of the American Planning Association. I think that's really cool to see. I mean, the really cool thing will be when that starts kind of taking effect throughout the system, but just to know that the good work is recognized already, and just want to congratulate staff, everyone who had a hand in that effort for their work.
That is great.
And with that, I'll turn it over to Jay.
Okay. You handled two of my things, so we'll go quick. The first one, is this new? No. Okay. Oh, that's what I was supposed to say. Okay, okay, fine. Okay. I was like, oh. Okay. So starting off, as you know, hopefully July is Park and Rec Month. The Board of Supervisors issued a proclamation on July the 16th. More than 50 Park and Rec professionals from the Park Authority, Department of Neighborhood and Community Services, McLean and Reston Community Centers attended. There's a lot of really great comments from the board. Are we going to play one? We're going to play just a little snippet, but the QR code is on the slide, and we can, when you send out the board matter, we can send the link. Also, I highly encourage you to listen to, what each of your supervisors had wonderful things that they had to say about all of the Park and Rec professionals. I was homesick with COVID. It's like my favorite day of being able to do this, so I couldn't attend as well. But seeing all the, blue shirts, you can see kind of us represented as an entity. So next slide.
I think almost everybody else. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Just very briefly, because I'm sure others will want to weigh in. First of all, it is amazing to see all of you here with your blue shirts on, some without blue shirts, but part of a team. I saw on the back of the shirt, Team FCPA, but it's Team County here as I look out and see folks from NCS and some of the other agencies that are involved in making our park system work collaboratively, but also so many of the volunteers and dedicated park advocates in the county that help make an ecosystem that not only puts Parks and Rec in the forefront, but also recognizes the importance on, as the motion says, the health and well-being of our community. Parks are not nice things to have. Parks are essential to the health and well-being of our community. And lastly, I want to thank all the people here on the staffs of these agencies that I mentioned, because I said to Bill Curran earlier, you might have heard me, when you talk to folks, directors of rec centers, it is like being mayor of a small town, especially right now with all the camps and everything else going on. But when I look at our park system and the vastness of it, I think sometimes our residents can take for granted the hard work and dedication that is behind making sure that these facilities are top-notch and available to our residents. And all of you play a role in making sure that happens in every corner of the county. It's a major undertaking, and these statistics speak volumes. I mean, 420 parks and 24,000 acres of property to care for, to maintain, not to mention all the youth groups, the work of NCS, and so many of our residents being involved in all of these. It's not just the physical facilities, it's all the intellectual capital that's here too, and what you do in communicating with our residents and making them feel like their parks are their parks. And we appreciate that greatly. And so while July is Park and Recreation Month, for me and a lot of my colleagues, every day is. There's literally almost not a day. Today is a good example of a day that this doesn't happen on. But there's literally almost not a day that goes by where I don't enter one of our parks. And I do that on purpose for my own mental health. Sometimes I do it for a kid's sporting activity, sometimes just for a short walk away from the house. But the point is, no matter how much time you spend in your parks, knowing that they're there for you as a refuge to get away from the day-to-day noise is so important to all of our residents. So thank you.
Thank you, Chairman McKay. Okay, next slide. We already covered this. We can send out a link to the presentation if you'd like to the committee presentation. Next slide. We covered this as well. That's the photo evidence of what Kyle was talking about. Did we miss anything? 9,700 volunteers contributing more than 110,000 hours of service valued at $3.7 million, with 23 recipients there to get acknowledged at the concert. Next slide. Oakmont Rec Center, this is just to let everybody know, this is one of our regular closures.
This is actually a longer closure than normal at Oakmont. The others are typical closures of the natatorium. So we're closing Oakmont for about a month to do significant work in updating the facility, locker rooms, natatorium, flooring, you name it. It's going to be addressed as part of this project. So we worked with Ken on the closure dates. This is the time that the rec centers are typically our slowest, so that's why we picked these dates. But you'll see a new and improved center when it'll reopen in September.
Next slide. Okay, so if you've gone outside in the last couple of weeks at all, you know that it's been very hot. And when you think about how hot it is with all of the heat advisories, we have just hundreds of camps and campers who are normally outside for camp. I know my kids were in Splash and Explore and at Lake Fairfax and the outdoor camps. And as we also know, as much as the activities that these children in our county are being able to engage in, at the end of the day, it's also school age daycare because parents have to go to work. And so the option of closing and saying it's too hot, we're gonna cancel camps and have parents have to, scuttle around wasn't an option. And so I just wanted to acknowledge all of the staff at all of the sites, as Chairman McKay was talking about, when we have things like heat advisories of having to adjust and change what it is that they're doing, having to scooch over a lot in rec centers to be able to fit more camps and rec centers. We went on a camp tour, and I think that a soccer camp was in one of the racquetball courts playing soccer, and at Franconia, the gym was just, I mean, they had it completely, and there weren't hemmed in. They had them completely separated. A basketball, gymnastics was in there. There's a drone flying camp that was in there. But just the whole all in type of thing, just to make sure that these kids still left, my kid, I can speak about my kids. My kids still left feeling enriched and having a really great time, even when they had to limit the amount of time that they were outside. So I didn't read a word of what was on the slide. Yes, staff training, recognizing signs of heat stroke, heat exhaustion, heat cramps and sunburn, modifying activities, regular water and shade, ongoing and proactive communication with participants and parents. Rec centers regularly available as cooling centers, which is a completely separate but related thing as well for cooling centers for the county. The rec centers are one of those, so people who are experiencing homelessness have the ability to go to a cooling center if they're in fact, living in a house with no AC or are showing signs, and the county gives bus passes to get there. And we have at our rec centers available water, sunscreen, and other things that people were to come in and need a shelter, need a heat shelter. Same thing at libraries and other locations across the county. So balancing those two things. And so it's a lot of stuff to do. And I always talk about what did you do? You had camp, right? There's a lot of things to do just to do what we normally do every day, but with 17,000 different things, happening to make sure our kids are both safe and have something to do and enrich. So thank you very much to all the staff who are dealing with things with camps, but also staff who are dealing with, things with at places like golf courses, because a lot of adults don't look at the fact that it's hot outside. And so our staff at golf courses have to make sure that, sir, it's 100 degrees outside, it might not be. So that kind of a thing. So next slide. Tournament season is going strong. We had 36 baseball and softball tournaments scheduled for the season at sites including Patriot Park North, Wakefield, and a number of satellite fields. With athletic field management staff, I'm not sure if everybody knows. We all know, obviously, but we have a whole staff dedicated to athletic field management. They trained other FCPA staff in athletic field maintenance and tournament support to manage all of the tournaments. Our staff for the athletic field management is the regular everyday staff. When we have large tournaments and large pressures, we really need to do an all hands on deck to make sure that our fields are playable, not just playable, but impressive, and it invites people to want to come to tournaments here again. So thanks to all the staff who stepped up to support these events and make them successful through a spring of intense rain and a summer of record-setting heat. Next slide. Our signs are getting a makeover. These are the things that seem like they're just a line item, and then you drive by someplace and you're like, wow, that really looks pretty awesome. So Wakefield Park sign was recently refurbished. That's the before and after. You can actually see the shield now. And we're actually working through the process, if you've noticed, of updating all of the FCPA signs to include the shields. So they're getting a little bit of color added to them. It's definitely noticeable when you see one of the new ones, and then you'll notice the older ones. So that's a process, especially when you have 420 parks, and a lot of parks have multiple signage to them. So that's a long-term process, but we're hoping to get all of them to have sort of this one look about them with the shield. Next slide. And all around. So we're updating rec center signs with a refreshed look. You see Oakmont Rec Center with the shield next to it. QR codes, we're adding QR codes to park rules and regulation signs for reporting maintenance issue and for information on game rules. Next slide. Orange Tea Club. The Orange Tea Club at Berkeley Golf Center is a groundbreaking pilot program that enhances the golf experience for junior golfers and their parents. Orange teas are closer to the hole and make for an easier, less intimidating, and enjoyable game. I personally play from the black. Is it the blacks, Brian? No. What's the one all the way back? Is it the blacks? I got it right. So I should have been more confident. I myself play from the blacks. But orange teas are fine too. I don't play from the blacks for anybody who's watching at home. Junior golfers age 5 to 12 is what we're targeting. It offers a relaxed pace of play. Juniors receive cool swag and discounts. Share the course with parents and junior golfers. It's a win-win for both kids and families. It's pretty cool and exciting. And there's the flyer with the QR code for those who want more information. Next slide. Oh, thanks to the Park Foundation. And that's the last one. Last one.
Go around the horn, Jonah.
Actually, I have a question before we get to that. So Jay, you're mentioning the cooling centers. Any thoughts about sort of how that's going to be impacted by climate? And I mean, are we max capacity at the cooling centers, or do we have like plenty of capacity, or what are your thoughts about that?
There are cooling centers all across. So it's community centers, it's libraries, it's a whole bunch of places. It's run sort of out of, and so it's a huge, not a huge endeavor, but it's a huge priority in general when dealing with and cold for heat centers. Where we come in, I'm going to kind of answer your question. Where we come in a lot of times is, if you mark, obviously Murphy's Law is we had a heat code red day on Memorial Day, Labor Day, Memorial Day. It was a holiday, 4th of July. I knew, okay, sorry. That was like, I was like, my brain was saying that doesn't make sense. But then I figured on the 4th of July weekend, and a lot of the community centers, libraries, and everything was closed. And so oftentimes when it's a weekend, we're really the only game in town. because we're open. And so trying to get that, push that out to let people know of facilities that are open and available. I think it's not harder for us. Other places have the whole center. So you go to the library, the entire library is open for a cooling center, whereas a rec center, for instance, it would be the lobby sort of area because you have to sort of scan to go through. I don't know that we're at capacity. I think that, part of it is getting to the sites this is a whole different thing that really has nothing to do with me and Park 30, but of getting to the sites and giving, getting people to encourage them to go. But from what I've heard, there's not, people aren't wading through, people to get into some of the cooling and the heating sites.
I mean, from the research that I've been looking at lately, it's looking like, within the next 10 to 15 years, our temperatures will be like more like the southern United States in terms of numbers of hot days and such. And I mean, I think, more people will get air conditioning and that kind of thing, but there'll still be lower income families that won't have it. So I'm just curious as to whether is there like a collaboration between us and the libraries? And I mean, people talking
Run
about
through HHS. So there's a whole, I don't know what the initiative is called. Do you happen to know what it's called at the top? It's run through HHS. And so Chris Leonard is one of the proponents. So there's
Someone's
a
thinking
coordinator
about,
there. So
like-
everybody, so we all kind of know, staff are trained to know, and we have a supply list of what we're supposed to have when we say that we're a cooling center. So it's not just that people can come in. It's water, it's sunscreen, it's wipes. You can speak. It's wipes. Is that it? Those three.
The primary.
Three things, and then we have the list of sites, and then there's a distribution where you can go and get you can get free transportation to a cooling center, so free bus. But please, for everybody listening, please take like half of the things. Please look it up. We can put it in next. Maybe we can use it next time and have a little bit of a information to make sure that I'm saying all of the correct things, because it's not out of the Park Authority. But I don't want to do it disservice to say that there isn't a whole program. So I'll try to get you more information.
I mean, I was just imagining that in the situation where there's a power outage, for instance, in the summer or the winter time, things would get quite overrun if it were to go for multiple days. I'm thinking about the sort of the situation that's going on in Texas right now, or yeah.
That's yes, I think that's different situation where we would definitely rely more on parks. I say all the time, and when I do talks about resiliency in general, it's natural disasters. Where do people go to the parks? It's the open spaces. If it's hot, it's at least a little bit of cooling, a little bit of breeze, type of thing. And whether or not, infrastructure wise, we're ready, especially with, mitigating the impacts of climate change and the fact that we're getting, hotter and rising tides and the whole, nine. The reality is we don't have the infrastructure right now, and really thinking about places that it's a whole different, thinking about places that would be those hubs to make sure that they are stubbed for high amounts of electricity, so you can run multiple power stuff, you can have generators. I think that taught us a lot. And I'm not sure how Fairfax County dealt with it through the height of COVID, but because of the limit to the amount of people who could be in shelters, we had shelters in Montgomery County that were built in parks, temporary shelters that were built in, because there wasn't room anywhere, because they had to separate. So it's things like that of thinking about, what happens in that case where everybody wants to plug their phone in and call their, loved one. So that's but yes.
Jay, if I could really quick, just add to that, just want to point out to members of the board, the county has set up a very good extreme heat resource webpage that goes over the entire cooling plan. It directs folks to libraries, community centers, rec centers, neighborhood and community services. It has information there for individuals who experience homelessness. We also direct folks to shopping malls, stores, movie theaters, and other non-public buildings where folks can get out of the heat and during these hot weather days. And there's also additional resources, like you were mentioning, if the AC goes out, who do you call, and things like that. That's all on the county's extreme heat resources website.
Plus they have some financial assistance programs for cooling too.
If I talk long enough, somebody's gonna find the answer to give it to you while I'm talking. I'm curious. So that's yeah.
But otherwise I pass.
I pass.
Pass. Dr. Carter,
I pass.
Faisal,
I'll pass.
Michael.
One of the things that strikes me is the athletic council has been dealing for a number of years issues with communications with the school system. And I was thinking during the last athletic council meeting that I would just have to say the words Cub Run and remind folks that at some point we have to deal with the school system and deal with Cub Run, and just wanted to, as Kyle already knows, I'm a little grumpy to begin with, but we have to get on top of the Cub Run issue at some point. We can't just keep sweeping it under the carpet. And so I just thought I would publicly say that yet again. And with that, I'll pass.
On purpose from not here.
That's strategic.
Thanks, bye.
Wood,
Pass.
Tim,
Pass.
Maggie.
Pass.
Anything else coming for us this evening? All right, with that, I will adjourn the July 24th, 2024 Park Authority Board meeting. See you all in a month, August 28th.
You guys.
Yeah, a little bit this way.